One of the areas of interest for me particularly is around ethics and bias, and I'll talk a bit about that, and I'm sure Caio will go through that as well throughout the morning. There'll be a lot of information. So this course we've put on and designed because there's a great deal of interest in this. ORUK and has supported digital innovation and AI in healthcare. But what we wanted this session to do was be a bit of an in-depth overview and really encourage discussion and conversation with the people who are on the call. So please, I'm going to echo what Chris said, which is, if there's anything that you want to talk about, anything that you've got questions for, or you just want to have chat, please put it in the chat. We'll monitor it and we'll be able to kind of respond as it comes up. And we've got a bit of time towards the end for questions and answers. Similarly, if there's anything you want to email or get in touch with, then please feel free. I'll hand over to Caio now for the bulk of the presentation, and I'm here in the background for the time being. Thanks very much.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. You can see you have a big group. Thank you, Justin, for all the effort, and Chris. So I'm Caio Moreno. I am a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. And what does this mean is I work with customers to design machine learning solutions. So I focus on AI, machine learning, and Azure in general. So everything I do doesn't have any value without people like you guys, without people like Justin and the group we have here. So I'm focused on health. So I want to make this session interactive session, because if I stay here presenting everything about Azure ML, Open AI, and Azure AI in general, maybe many of the things will not be interesting to the group. So please feel free to ask questions. You guys can always stop me anytime. Don't be afraid to stop and make any comments or suggestions. I have to say, I'm not going to be able to cover everything today, so I will try to do some intros. As I said before, AI is a super hot topic now, so there's a lot of hype. People think that AI will solve everything, and we know that's not true. And behind AI, there are humans like us, and it's not like a magic box that you're gonna click on a button and it's gonna replace all of us. So I think Justin is gonna explain all the work, all the amount of hours that they put to actually make AI and ML a reality in his project. And of course, AI is just like a tool that we need to use. So the other day, I think I saw, and someone tagged me that saying, "Oh, AI is going to replace doctors," but in fact, they're saying it's not that AI is going to replace doctors. Doctors that use AI will replace the doctors that they don't use, and we don't know if it's true, right? Maybe it's not. So I always think that should we use the tools to help our work? So I think there's a lot of potential to use AI, specifically machine learning, to improve the amazing work that the doctors they do in the health space. So that's something we can see with the work that Justin is doing with his team and other people as well. So I want to ask some questions before I started going to the agenda. Who here is already working with machine learning in a health project? So you don't need to be already coding, but you're thinking, or you have an idea of a potential use case, or whatever stage you are. Please just raise your hand on Teams so I can know. Okay, you have a look, have Rage, Edo. Oh, many people. That's good. Excellent. Like, wow, that's good. And I'm not gonna ask the reasons and the project because will take the whole session, but I'm very excited to speak with you guys later about what you guys are doing. So that's good, group. So another question maybe is who is thinking to maybe, I know you guys spend a lot of time in your career, and then I remember what Justin said, I'm pursuing my PhD in artificial intelligence. I said, wow, that's very cool. But it's also a lot of effort, right? I mean, it's I recently finished my PhD. It took me like 6 years, and I've done during the pandemic and with 3 kids. It was hard, really. So it was a lot of, I think I still recovering from the effort. Uh, and I've done in machine learning. So who here already is spending time actually learning Python or learning data science? Or maybe who is interested to do coding in this group? Maybe if you can just raise your hand so I can. Yeah. So the reason I'm asking this question, I see a big group again. The reason I'm asking this question is machine learning and AI, it's not something we can do without coding. So we need to be able to, we need to like it, really. I think we really need to like it. And then, so what I'm going to explain today is, I think you guys saw the agenda, right? So Justin, anytime you want to stop me also to maybe introduce your content inside my content, feel free to do it, okay? So I'm going to share my screen now, but basically what we're playing about today, and by the way, this is a custom session because we had many discussions say, how can we make this an interesting session for you guys? Because maybe if we go too technical, will not be good, or if we don't go too technical. So I would love to get feedback as we go, if this is something that is kind of meeting the expectations you guys had when you guys decided to join this session, because there's a lot of content that I can show, and there's a lot of ways we could do this session. So I want to make this as more interactive possible. So please help us, help myself and Justin and Chris, that we can do the best, you guys, the best we can. So basically the idea is we're gonna talk a little bit about AI service in general, just like a brief overview what they do, because sometimes what you can do is you can save time by reusing service that Microsoft created and spend like many years and consider amount of money to build them instead of actually building your own service. So sometimes you might have some requirements to build your own things, but sometimes you can just reuse what is already there. That can save you time, so it improves your time to market. Another thing we're going to talk is like about the very hot topic in the moment, Azure Open AI. I was thinking, so if you see the agenda, I was thinking to talk about machine learning service before, but I think I'm going to switch because I think I want to talk about OpenAI first, then I talk about Azure ML later, and then we go to the more like hands-on, because I want to show you guys the platform as well, and then we're going to talk about responsible AI as well, and also Auto ML, which is another topic that can benefit many of you. So I'm going to share my screen now. Just going to speak a little bit about the service we have. And let me share my screen. Second. So anytime, any question, please ask questions. Don't be shy. So okay, so let me. So do you guys see my screen? Let me.
Yep, got it.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so good. So let me. Okay, so Azure AI. So when we think about the portfolio of service and products that we have at Microsoft, we have what we call our machine learning platform, and this is what we call Azure Machine Learning Service. And this is the one that we're going to spend considerable amount of time today. And that's the one I want to upskill you guys and help you guys to start using. And also we're going to talk about Azure Open AI, which is another service. But a part of that, what we have is what we call Cognitive Service. And then cognitive service focus on things like vision, speech, language, decision, and then OpenAI is now part of the cognitive service family. And then we have what we call more like apply AI service, like what we call scenario-based service. But before I touch on that, I would just want to talk about the cognitive service. In the vision side, we have things like face detection. For example, you can use the face API to detect people like similarity. So there's a lot of things you could do with the vision, and it's just like using the APIs. So you don't need to actually train the model. The model is already trained by Microsoft. You have to use it. There is some potential to do some custom training as well in things like, for example, custom vision.ai, which is a service. If you go customvision.ai, you can try, and then you could do things like detection of objects. For example, imagine that you have an image and you want to classify that image, so you could use a service like that. And then there is the speech side. For example, I use a lot with customers what we call speech to text. So it's when you have audio files and then you wanted to convert them to text. And this could be maybe patients' calls that maybe you wanted to translate this to text and then do some analytics on top of that. So for example, call centers they use. And then in the language, we have what we call LUIS, which is like a service. I don't know how many of you are familiar, where you could do things like predicting the intent. So for example, if I say, I want to buy a house, so this is an intent. And then if you have a chat box, for example, you could say, every time someone say, I want to buy a house, so you predict what is the intent, and then you can say an action. For example, you say, okay, if someone wants to buy a house, then I gave them maybe 3 options. One option is to talk to someone. The other one could be, I don't know, go to this website. But going back for the health sector, it's like, for example, I don't know if you guys seen, but during COVID, there was some bots, and those bots, they will help people to know more about COVID and maybe present them some different paths. So for example, you could predict the intent and say, oh, someone is very sick, maybe tell them to call this number. For example, you could have a bot that will predict the intent and move to a specific route. So, and then you have like the decision service, like for example, they can help you, for example, I don't know, anomaly detectors and other things like, and then you have OpenAI, which I'm not going to talk now because this is a big topic and I want to speak more in deep about OpenAI very soon. And those services, they're kind of focused on what we call the developers or the data scientists. But for example, to use the speech to text, you don't need to be a data scientist. If you're a software developer, you're familiar with using APIs, building apps, you can use service in most of the cognitive service. And then you have like what we discussed, the scenario-based service, which is things like the bot service, so you can build your own bot. Cognitive search, it's kind of like your own Bing. So imagine you need to search on documents, and then you can create your own search mechanism. Form recognizing is something I see, for example, some um, uh, companies in the health sector that they have documents. Imagine like you have prescriptions, right? So people are sending prescriptions and they are in paper or they are computerized, but they are PDF files. Maybe you can use Form Recognizer to have a look in that PDF file, convert the content to text, and then you use this data, this text data, to do other things. For example, you could maybe populate a database with this content. You could maybe use the OpenAI to do whatever maybe summarization you want. And then you have things like video indexer that are using like AI on top of videos. So can do some things like finding people in the videos or other sorts of things. And then on top of that, you have tools like Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents. They all benefit from the AI service we have, and then this helps you to improve your productivity. I don't know if you guys saw, but there are things like Copilot. So, for example, many of the Microsoft service, they are coming with what we call Copilot, and then Copilot is basically using generative AI, something we're going to discuss, to recommend things to you. So I want to stop now, and I wanted to pause and give you time for you guys maybe to ask questions about the Azure AI service. And maybe, is there any service that you guys are using already? Any experience? Is it just totally new for you guys, or you guys are familiar with this already?
So, as you know, we've been using Azure a lot because it's a resource that we've got access to, and I think I think there's a lot of components which are all in one place, which make quite a lot of things quite easy. But I do wonder if that's unique to us in Northumbria, and whether those that are using other platforms or using other tools also have access to Azure, or if it's you're just doing things in notepads and Jupyter or something like that.
Yeah, so anyone wants to share any experience? So I think maybe this is probably new to all of you guys. If that's okay, I can continue. Do you guys want to ask any question before we move on to? I want to talk about Azure Open AI now. So, but before that,
Is it worth just anyone we had a few hands up for programming and people who are still using AI, I mean, is it worth just sticking it in the chat and then we can get a bit
yeah, I
of a
think so.
feel, because then I think we can tailor things in more towards tools that are useful for you, or how to use them.
Sure. Yeah. Anyway, there we have a comment. I haven't used Azure, but maybe I have the mental score. That's good. Yeah, so that's good. So that's good, you guys. I mean, so the AI fundamental course definitely like a very good step. So for those that really they're thinking about that, I would recommend that. Then Frederick said that he finished that. Also Auto ML. Okay, so Auto ML is also something I wanted to focus today. So I prepare an example using the diabetes dataset, which is a quite common data set for the health community. And I want to show you guys how to use Auto ML to build your own machine learning model without coding, because and then you can even deploy that model. And then not just like building the model, it's also nice because I will show you guys how you could also see the feature importance. Let's say, what are the things that are helping to predict if someone's going to be diabetes or not, So I think it will be an interesting exercise, and then you guys can reuse this with other data sets. So let me see the other comments. How is it? Yeah, I think you raised a very important topic, Luke. So how is healthcare information security maintained with the Azure environment? So that's something I spend a lot of thinking, because there are some scenarios that, okay, you can put the data into the cloud and then that's fine, right? But for health projects, like for example, the one that Justin is doing, I think we had many discussion about that, because the Azure platform has already the certifications, and it has the features that you can use to make sure your data is secure. So for example, I see some people maybe doing some data science project on their own laptop. that's also not very secure, right? Because someone gets your laptop, or maybe anything can happen in that data. So, for example, one thing we recommend when you're building like your machine learning projects using production data, let's say, you need to make sure you put this into a place that has proper security. I don't know, maybe look if you want to share your experience since you raised this question, because I think this is a very important topic for all of us, to make sure that we have a secure environment. So I'm not a secure expert, but I have to say that in the last years I spent a lot of time learning and implementing secure best practice with machine learning projects, because that's always like a big topic. So I don't know if you want to share anything, maybe your experience, look, things you read about or you've done.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm just on my phone, so I'm not sure how good the sound quality is going to be. But so yeah, I'm doing a PhD working with kind of AI, predominantly around kind of hip and knee arthroplasty. But I mean, I actually work within a secure kind of research environment that has a dedicated kind of AI kind of setup. This program, which is known as kind of iCard, which is a collaborative kind of thing between kind of Scottish universities and Canon kind of medical. So they've worked to actually specifically set up this kind of safe haven AI platform. So I'm pretty kind of lucky in that regard that it is a very kind of, you know, safe and secure environment. But I appreciate, obviously, it's just slightly different, as you said, in terms of working with the cloud. I guess I'm a little bit skeptical about, you know, how, as I said, how that kind of data security process kind of works within the cloud, because obviously it's a slightly kind of different kind of mechanism.
Definitely. So security is not like the goal of this session, but what I'm gonna put a GitHub repo which I created for my needs. Let's say the projects that I'm working, that covers a lot about security. So let me get that 1 second, because I'm also always like thinking about security, because the same thing goes to your house, right? Let's say if you think about how can I make my house more secure, sometimes you might go very, very crazy, and you can do all those sorts of things, and they might be very useful, you know. But as you know, as much as we invest on that, there's also some trade-offs. So what I'm gonna do, I'll paste this in the link in the chat. So I created this GitHub repo. So it's in my private one, my personal one, that basically covers about security in general. So I'm happy to take this offline, maybe if you look at anyone else that wants to talk about, because that's a very hot topic and interests me a lot. And I have to say, it's always top of mind to every NHS trust. and Microsoft, we take this very seriously. We want to make sure that it's top, it's best practice always apply. So have a look at this repo. I'm happy to take this offline. If anyone else have, I mean, there's more other questions I want to put. I saw here. So one saying, okay, I'm interesting observer at that stage. No experience using AI outside playing with ChatGPT. That's good. So what are you, when David, you mentioned playing with ChatGPT, what are you doing with ChatGPT now? Maybe, I don't know if you want to share your experience, and are you using for health or more for other personal reasons? I think David's saying something, but the audio is not coming. Oh yeah, we cannot hear you, David. I can only see that it's yeah. Anyway, maybe put in the chat. So okay, Thomas said I've been using ML techniques as part of PhD project, using Python R as they are freely available. I'm unfamiliar with Microsoft. Azure is a paid service. Yeah, it is a paid service. You can get some credits, and then the thing is, you can use Python and R in Azure ML as well. So we will see that, and then usually people like you that are using Python and R, you can easily start using Azure ML. It's very similar. I will show you. Even the notebook experience is the same. Have you recently tried Azure? You can go with free subscription. Yeah, so you can use the free subscription, and then pay for the other things as well. More generally summarize article. Okay, good. So you're using your ChatGPT for OpenAI, let's say, for summarize article. So using it as an alternative to search. Good. So guys, I wanted to move on now, if that's okay with you guys. I want to talk about Azure Open AI. Is there any other comments or questions? If not, I'm gonna share my screen again and then move it on. 1 second. But thank you for the comments, really. Like, I really appreciate that. Okay, so let me go back to here. So do you guys see this Azure Open AI service is live?
Yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. So, okay, let's talk about the new kid on the block. Everybody's talking about. I think in the last 3 months, almost every news is about that. I saw not long ago people actually asking companies like Microsoft and others, guys, we need to pause that. Like, oh, we cannot. It's going too fast, you know. So it's really like revolutionizing the world now. Like everybody's talking about generative AI, and then we're gonna talk about OpenAI, which is the Azure OpenAI service, which is changing the world. Really, like people are comparing this to electricity, like the industrial revolution, the beginning of internet. So all those change that they change the world that we live completely. People are saying that the next big thing, the super big transformation in the world is this. So let me give a little bit of a background, like because this is not something that just started 3 months ago. So in 1953, artificial intelligence started as a field in the computer science department, let's say. And then the desire was to create like intelligent machines that can replicate or exceed human intelligence. It's interesting, like, because, yeah, just replicate or maybe even go beyond human intelligence. That was the vision. Okay, fast forward, like 1997. So it started machine learning, which is a subset of AI that enables machines to learn from existing data and improve upon data to make decisions or predictions. The thing is, machine learning, as most of us will know, it's very relative to statistics, right? I mean, my PhD was in the statistic department, and everybody that knows statistic, like we know about probabilities, right? So probability is the base, and then machine learning, basically, we use a lot of probabilities and we'll give probabilities. For example, the project that I'm working with Justin, basically we're using what is the probability that people are going to get a complication in a surgery based on the historical data that we have. And then maybe if we know someone could get very seriously injured or have a complication, and then we know there's some mitigations, then maybe it's a good thing to talk to those people, say, look, why you don't do this first before you, I don't know, I'm not in the field, Justin, correct me if I'm saying something wrong, but like maybe why you don't do this, and then you get a little bit more prepared, because nobody wants to harm anyone. And then the idea is to use Azure machine learning to make people's life better. So I think, Justin, you can explain more what we're trying to do and give some real example.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of examples later on, but you're right. So it's about how it's applied to healthcare, and everyone that's been involved in ML and AI so far will be doing it in either a kind of a prognostic or a diagnostic manner. But you know, your outcomes are usually the same. Your objectives, which is you're trying to improve either the delivery of service or the patient's treatments, recognizing disease earlier or understanding kind of their trajectory and the path that they take. So machine learning is really good at that because it's quite a narrow focus, and it you know, you put in your information and you ask it the question, and it comes up with these complex algorithms which really help. That's my kind of layman's way of saying it. Caio, you're far more eloquent and technical, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
you got it right.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, the way I like to think about machine learning, like I always think about my daughters, right? So I'm a lucky man. I have 3 daughters. Like one is 10, the other is 7, and the other is 3 now. And then from all of them in the last 10 years, I've seen things like when I was teaching them like about things like, okay, this is an apple, this is something. So they'll have to say that thing many times until they actually will say, oh, this is this. So it's like they're training their own brain, like their neural network. They're training themselves to be able to identify things. And we as humans, we do this, but we don't think we're doing this. We're basically doing. So I love cars. And sometimes I go with my daughters and I say, what car is this? And they're going to say, oh, this is a Mercedes, this is a BMW, this is a Bentley, whatever. This is a Ferrari, you know? And then I try to teach them how you can identify. And then let's say I can look, every car has like a logo. If you look at the logo, oh, this is the Mercedes logo, this is the Volvo logo, you know? And then try to teach them, okay, what are the features that you need to look? Because they're going to help you to predict the brand of the car. And then I don't know for you guys, but sometimes people come with very new cars. And then even for like someone like me, I'll say, well, what car is that, you know? So it's kind of like my brain is trying to predict what brand is that. And then sometimes I will go back to my, let's say my data set or my training data, and I'll try to predict this new test data to give a correct answer. And then I have to say, I kind of train my daughters. They can predict very well, most of them, what cars they are. So going back to machine learning is the same principle, okay? So maybe I'm saying something that is very new to people like you, or maybe you guys all know that, and I'm going to just continue very quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But the idea is, okay, I want to use historical data, help the machine to understand what things will predict better. Let's say in the example I gave with cars is like if you focus on the logo, but we know some brands, let's say like Porsche, they also have like a type of design that you can identify very quick when it's a Porsche. So, you know, so this kind of features is what makes the predictions to go well. So for example, in the example of complication, I don't know, maybe it could be the race or maybe the age or whatever reason. So the example I'm going to show you guys about diabetics, for example, we're going to talk about these features that will improve the prediction. So that's machine learning, and we're talking about maybe like long time ago already. And then the deep learning phase, which revolutionized the world as well. So 2017, people start talking about deep learning, which was like a machine learning techniques, which was also based on like on neural networks, which is not as new as deep learning, but it was like an improvement. And then the way deep learning really explode was the combination of deep learning with cloud and data. Because before people were doing like neural networks, but then what happened is they didn't have the amount of data we have now, and then the power of the cloud. So the machine learning techniques that use layers of neural networks and then can process data and make decisions. So a huge example of like super success with deep learning is the face recognition use case. So nobody knows how, I mean, we kind of know a little bit, but how we can predict so well, but basically deep learning using all those hiding layers will be able to predict well someone's face, and even better than a human. If I don't have my glass, my prediction rate, my accuracy is very low. when I put my glass, sometimes I can recognize people. So I always tell people, maybe if you find me on the street, make sure you talk to me, because maybe I'm not going to be able to recognize you very well. And then deep learning with face recognition, it's very good. And then I think it's now has human parity, like, or even past humans, so it does better. But now the new big thing, which is generative AI. So 2021, so Microsoft has been investing in OpenAI for a long time now, I think since 2019, as like a research group. And then now we have, let's say, in 2023, a lot of things happening. But 2021 is when, like, we can say, we said we could use AI to create new written, new image, and new content using prompt. So that's the interesting thing. So for example, in OpenAI, for those that are playing, using it, you can say, translate me this to English from Spanish. Then we do for you. Or generate this image that I want, let's say, Bill Gates in Seattle in a Windows computer. And then it will create. So I'm going to go more deep onto the OpenAI. I just want to stop now. I mean, is it OpenAI and generative AI a totally new topic to you guys, or are you guys already familiar with that? Is there any question before we go more into the details? Or any comments? So I'll take the silence as a no. So I'm just gonna
there's a few messages in the chat.
Oh,
which
I didn't see.
through,
Let me
Caio.
check.
So I'm just answering them off, really. Someone brought up about distinction between reinforcement and machine learning. You know, whether
okay, yeah, that's a good question. I can talk about machine learning. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was just saying, we're just going through, so it seems to be all right.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, when I'm presenting, unfortunately, I cannot see the chat. So thank you for calling out. So regarding reinforcement learning, it's also something very important. If you think, like, for example, the autopilot for cars, like cars that can drive alone, like they're using reinforcement learning, which is also something very important, because you use rewards, and let's say you can create like this mechanism as the model gets better as you reward the model. So people use reinforcement learning, for example, for the games. You make the machine to play games, then they get better, and then actually will play better than most of us. So it's not in that slide, but you're right. The reinforcement learning is also very. So it's just like an evolution of what we're discussing. I don't know, Joseph, if you what you describe is, yeah. If I give the description of, so reinforcement learning is like is machine learning as well. So there you have deep learning. Then reinforcement learning is, the difference is you're gonna use rewards to retrain and then improve the accuracy. And then the use case, the one that I'm always think about is, for example, like the cars that can drive themselves. Most of them are based on reinforcement learning. And then I don't know if you saw like AlphaGo when they beat the guys. So, and then I think, Justin, you mentioned about responsible random customer data. Yeah, that's very true. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. You post on the chat.
Yeah, so just again, so it's about handling patient data. So a lot of the time, and the frustration comes with the power required to do a lot of processing, either image analysis or tabular data analysis. And the computers that you have usually in the hospital sites are woefully inadequate. So there's a temptation there to be looking at whether or not you can pseudonymize data or try to de-identify it, take it away and work on it in an environment where you've got a bit more computational power. So with all these things, it's patient data, and it's about handling it responsibly. So Azure, for us, my comment was really that we're really fortunate that we've got this Azure environment which ticks all the cybersecurity, cyber essential requirements from handling data. But Luke, I'm not sure if you're a professor, Mr. Farrow, but certainly a secure, safe haven or trusted research environment is also really important place that you can be doing machine learning in, or AI. But it's about making sure you've got those processes in place to handle data responsibly, really.
Thank you, Jess. So I'm gonna continue here. I wanted to also do a hands-on zone. So maybe some people say, "Oh, let's stop the slides and let's go to the platform." So I'm gonna do that. So just continue about the OpenAI. I will speed up a little bit on the discussion, but feel free to stop me anytime if I'm going too fast. Let me know. So yeah, as we see that we have many people talking about ChatGPT, which is like something created by OpenAI, and then we can have like the ChatGPT in Azure OpenAI. So basically, OpenAI is a company. It's a research company, and then together with Microsoft, there's a partnership, and then this partnership basically. So Microsoft invests a lot of money in OpenAI, create this partnership, and now this is available on Azure. And then basically you have like the GPT-3 model, the Codex, and the DALL-E. For those who are familiar with GitHub, for example, there is like the GitHub Copilot, which you can use in Visual Studio. And then basically you can say, write me a function in Python that will do this, and that. And then using generative AI, we'll use the Codex model, and then it will create a potential code that you could use. For image, I don't know if you guys know, but for example, you can say, generate me an image of a dog. This dog is in space, and I want this dog to have like a Real Madrid football t-shirt, for example. And then imagine, like, if you do that, you will see they're probably going to generate like an image of a dog in the space with a Real Madrid t-shirt. And then people are doing art with that. People are creating all sorts of new image. And then recently I saw people using famous people and create this image that you cannot identify if it is real or not. So also there's an element of, wow, this is so good that it's hard to say this is real or not. And then the ChatGPT-3 basically you can use to generate or also to understand text. As you guys mentioned, like you can use to summarize text, for example. So how does it work? For example, in the generative AI world, there is something called prompt, and the prompt engineering is the new big thing. So I think people will start putting in their LinkedIn prompt engineer as a skill, and I was really thinking about putting that because it's definitely like a skill now. And then it's your ability to ask OpenAI what you want. I will give you three examples here. One is like a prompt where you say, write a tagline for an ice cream shop. And then it gives you a response. We serve up smiles with every scoop. Created by GPT, right? And then using Codex, which is another model, you can give another prompt. It's like, okay, table customers, columns, then you pass the columns, and then create a SQL query for all customers in Texas named Jane. And then you get a response. Those are all things that you can try right now on Azure OpenAI, and you see it works. And then this one is going to give you the SQL query. So I have to say I use Codex model for things like write me a Scala code that will do this and that for me, and then it writes very well. Another one is for images. So write a prompt, a white Siamese cat, and then gives you this image. So imagine the potential that you could, the potential you have if you start doing this type of use case. So I want to stop here because it's important to understand. Sorry, this one, the concept of prompt engineer. I don't know. Is there any question? I mean, because have you guys used it? I'm going to stop here so I can see the chat. So, you guys familiar with prompt engineering? Like what prompt is? Have you tried this in the OpenAI API or in the Azure OpenAI service? So I think it's new for most of us. I'll continue.
I'm not too familiar with it, Caio, so.
No problem. I'm gonna continue here. So the next slide is the one that we already discussed. So I'm gonna jump on that. I'm gonna just jump. Okay, so when the Azure OpenAI service, yeah, you can deploy this on Azure. It basically, the service contains like a very large pre-trained AI model. And then if you have to create this model by yourself, you're gonna have to spend a huge amount of money and time to get to the same situation. Sorry, same scenario, like having that model. And then the idea is using Azure OpenAI service, you can have that model for you. And I mean, you pay for that, but available for you instead of you having to first create the model, have the expertise to create, like train the model in very huge computers and all that. And then you can custom those models and fine tune to your data and with your parameters. And also you can use like responsible AI to detect and mitigate harmful use. And then it comes with what we call the enterprise grade security with role-based access control and private networks. Because, okay, now I'm going to use my own data, but I want to put this into my Azure and use the same role-based access control that I have and private network. Maybe this is not for what you guys wanted to do, but someone in the organization will need to think about the security and the infrastructure side. So that's when I think this last topic is important, because just helps you to have a very enterprise environment. So in terms of capabilities, like, yeah, you can use to outline SI, summarize text, extracting insight, do code generation, like writing a poem, answering questions, create image, comments from code, like virtual assistant, semantic search, so many things, like language translation, classifying text. For example, imagine that you wanted to give a document and then classify if that's, for example, maybe a medical report or something that you need to extract. So yeah, it has many opportunities. So some of the kind of top capabilities in use case. So for content generation, so for example, call center analytics, automatically generate response to customer inquiries, like personalize a website. I think like maybe those are not very connected to what you guys do, but I think there's a potential, especially I think in the semantic search part. Maybe if you're doing research and then you have a lot of documents with specific disease, maybe you could use this. I don't know. I'm explaining to you guys what can be done and let you guys the homework to think how can you use this into your own use case. So I'm gonna share the slides later with you guys. So I'm gonna go a little bit quick now because I wanted to spend time. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because a few people have said that they've been using AI, or some are just have got an interest. And we've had a few examples of using it to summarize text. But I guess the other thing is, there's a potential use case for things like OpenAI or Azure machine learning tools. And yeah, we all operate in different areas, but I was wondering if there's if people could put into the chat, kind of ambitions of where they feel that there's a real use case. We might be able to just kind of pick some of those out and just explore potentially what tools might be appropriate to start looking at them.
Yeah,
how does
that's
that sound? Does that sound good? Because keen that kind of people or everyone gets an opportunity to maybe go away or have some kind of pointed advice in terms of what might help them in some practice. So if there's any areas that you wanted to look at, so you want to look at ultrasound scans, or you want to kind of summarize your surgical notes, your post-op documents, and tie them into clinical coding, those are real good potential use cases, and we may be able to kind of point you in direction. So Racine's put in there about working in the gait lab. So would you be looking at kind of gait analysis, or presumably that's that's some work that's...
Hi Justin, yeah, it's Roisin
Hi.
here. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so yeah, we as part of our clinical services, we generate massive amounts of data with regards to people's gait, the kinematics, the movement, the kinetics, the forces, and we do lots of maths on that to produce reports for an individual clinical case. So we're really thinking about this massive amount of data that we've collected over the last 20 years, measuring multiple pathologies. We've also got access to reference data, so people who don't have any kind of pathology. And I think there's a big potential there, as it's a massive data set. But I don't really know where to go. We don't really know where to go with it. At the moment, we're exploring different options. So that's where we're coming from.
Yeah, and I think that's that's not unlike a lot of people. I mean, it's great that you've got this data. I guess when you so if you break it down into kind of diagnostic or prognostic modeling type approaches, if you wanted to kind of diagnose pathology through gait analysis and with your registry data, then so Caio, what kind of tools would lend themselves to that, or are there resources that we've got around those? And similarly, I guess in terms of prognostic modeling, there's a lot of image analysis there, but there'll be outcome measures that you want to determine as well.
Yeah, I think we think we could continue to post those comments. They're very, very good. I really like it. And then maybe what I could do in the next day is to, based on some of the comments, maybe propose some ideas and some maybe materials we have. For example, regarding stratification, I think I have an article that I can share, and then maybe we can, because I think this is a very useful thing. So one thing I also always kind of reflect is we're living in a time that if we understand the technology and we understand the problem, there's so much opportunity for us to create the new things, the new solutions, the new ways of doing things. So we're all kind of in that moment of history that we are empower things that will change a lot. And specifically, I think in the UK, because the things we have here, the momentum, it's very special. So yeah, happy to go more deep into the use case. So I think that's really like the most interesting part of the session. And then just so I can give you guys more understanding about the technology, I'll continue. But please continue to post those things. I think Fresh said, and then, okay. So I think that goes more into interesting to use it unsupervised too. Yeah, so definitely trends are something that you can. So for example, just in like when we were doing the project together, like one thing I think that was interesting to see is like as soon as you start training a model, you start to understand better the data, and then you can look at trends. You can also see what are the things that impacting the complication, for example. And then sometimes you have some assumptions, but only when you start playing with the data and using machine learning is when you see the real trends, right? I mean, and then you get insights. So
Yeah,
I want.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's completely right. So there's a real benefit to having domain knowledge when you're working with machine learning, and that's one of the things that certainly that we've found that there's a huge amount of technical expertise around data science, and then there's a huge amount of clinical understanding and domain knowledge that that clinicians and people that work in the healthcare bring to it. I guess with all these things, there's a period of exploration where that data is explored, it's handled, it's kind of manipulated, and you can either kind of work towards a pointed question and see how the data fits, or kind of work with the data and see if there are trends and analysis that are coming out which can help. But I think, Roisin, just going back to your point, having loads of data is great, but having kind of no direction can leave people essentially wondering what they can do with it. And I guess that's really the starting block, which is being able to define what your question is. Are you looking at how people's disease progress over a period of time? And then you can start forming and using what data you've got and exploring how it feeds into each of those different components. Really happy to kind of chat more about it afterwards as well, if there's anything, if we don't cover it, but I'll try and just respond to some of the questions in the chat as well.
Excellent. So my plans is I want to finish now some of the slides, then I'm going to show a quick demo about OpenAI, and then I think we can have a quick break, and then we come back to more the Azure ML part. Does this looks good for you guys? Or do you guys just want to continue directly for 3 hours? I was thinking to have a 10 minutes break, like for physical needs. So okay, so I'm gonna continue here. I will finish about the OpenAI, and then we can. So sharing my slide from current slide. Okay, so then we discussed about the topics, and then those are very generic because they're not like customized for the health industry. And then hearing from you guys what could be done, I think it's very, very key, very important. So going to solutions, like some things that we have already, what we call accelerators, right? So accelerator is something that Microsoft built to quickly deploy this onto your own environment. And one of them is like what we call document processing automation. So it's like extract rich insights from documents and summarize them. So if you have, let's say, thousands of documents, you can use those documents, maybe put into form recognizer, for example, that will recognize what is in the document. And then you can use, let's say, cognitive search to search on top of that. And then you can really enrich that using OpenAI, for example. And then you can have like a web application that will help you to consume this, or you could use Power BI. Another one what we see is what we call contact center analytics using the speech API and OpenAI. So it extracts insights from calls transcripts. So you can have the files, convert speech to text to OpenAI, and then get, for example, history of the call, summarize the calls. And then one thing that I see that's very interesting, so Microsoft Teams Premium has a feature now that as you speak, it's going to summarize what people said. So imagine you go for a meeting like this, let's say 3 hours meeting, and then you're going to have like a summarization of the topics. So that's very. Sometimes you go to a meeting like 30 minutes meeting or 1 hour minutes, and then automatically the tool will summarize to you. So you could do things for like call histories. For example, imagine someone goes and talk to a bank, and then, or maybe with of the patients calls you, and then you can maybe use this to summarize the things. So this is an example, okay? So this is like an Azure Open AI simple use case. So in the playground, which I'm going to show you guys, there is like what we call the Da Vinci model. And then the Da Vinci model has already some example. So this is the customer conversation. So the customer say, hi there, I just had a car accident and I want to report it. Okay, I hope you're right and I'm safe place to have this conversation. Yes, I'm fine. So basically there's this conversation, and then using the Azure Open AI instructions, which is what I was saying about the prompt engineer. And then you literally write this in English and you say, extract the following from the conversation. And then you say, 1, main reason of the conversation. 2, sentiment of the customer. How did the agent handle the conversation? What was the final outcome? And then create me a summary. So basically the output that is generated by OpenAI would be, okay, the main reason of the conversation was to report car accident. The sentiment of the customer was shaking, but okay. The agent handled the conversation well and was empathetic. And the final outcome of the conversation was the agent started a claim and ordered a voucher. The customer was in a car accident and the agent started a claim and ordered a voucher. The customer was shaken up, but okay. So look how powerful it is. Based on the text, you can tell Azure Open AI, you give instruction, what we call like the prompt engineer, and then it's going to give you the output. And what we have here, you could say, let's say, and after you've done all of that, translate this to Spanish, for example. You know, so you give instructions to OpenAI, and then the model will do the magic, the difficult part. So we're gonna play together. So this is another example, okay, where you can even say output as a JSON. So, you know, in the instruction, you say, okay, you must extract the following information from the phone conversation: call reason, cause of the incident. Imagine now going to the health world, which is something I'm doing with some other customers. Like you have, let's say, pathology report, and then you wanted to say, okay, in my pathology report, I wanted to extract this, and that, and then save me this to and extract me this to JSON. So then using OpenAI, it's going to go in the PDF. It's going to go to the text, and it's going to extract that information. So instead of you going manually and extracting this, you can use the computer to do that for you. So as we see here, so this is like a computerized format, which is JSON. So which you could save this to a database. So you go check the free text from whatever system you have, give some instructions, and then you get the result. So yeah, and then there's other use cases as well. For example, this one, it's in German. So so you put the input in German, and then you give the instruction, and then you get the output, which is like an email. Dear customers, we are writing to inform you that we have scheduled maintenance. So the instruction is interesting. Like generate a formal custom communication in English, and then you say offer help at this. Be apologetic where possible. Use this format. Please output in a letter format. Then you get this output. So there's many potentials. So I will show now. Can you guys hear the song?
No.
Can you guys hear?
Can't hear a song.
Okay, let me see if I
singing
can.
or
Yeah, so it's a demo. Let me see if I can. I cannot. Oh, maybe. Anyway, I'll jump that. I will show this in real. Like, anyway, there's some custom stories that I think I would jump that because there are more customers, more content that I wanted to say. But just like some considerations. That you need to think, and then you need to. Okay, let me just yeah, the benefits I think we discussed, right? This could increase efficiency and productivity. Yeah, more faster time to realize value and change customer experience. So there are many benefits that we could think. Easy to use, the data privacy and security, does not require like a long tedious annotation process. For example, other solutions that you want to achieve the same goal, it takes a lot of time. Also less training data for most of the use case, and ability to perform text analytics and generative tasks. So yeah, there are many benefits. I will now go to the portal. So let me showcase this to you guys. So do you see my Azure portal? So for those that are not familiar with Azure, if you go here and you say portal.azure. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick. So I ask you, there's this portal. I'm gonna use my user here. And then if you don't have access to the portal, you might need to talk to your IT team, see how you can get. But most of NHS trust, we have like an IT team that has access to Azure. And then this is the Azure portal. And then in the Azure portal, what I have here is my customer demos. So I create like a resource group, and a resource group, for those who are not familiar, is pretty much like a place where you have your services, right? The things that you need. So if I go to my customer resource group, I have things like my Azure ML, I have some of my other service. So how do I get to here? So if you're new, completely new to Azure, the first thing you need to know is you need to have access to the portal, which you can get for free to try. And then you go to create a resource, and then you go resource group. Okay, and then the resource group is where you come here and create like this place. So I'm going to create this resource group inside my subscription, this subscription that I have, and then I'm going to call this Azure AI demos. Okay, and then I'm going to create this into the UK South region. And as you can see, there are many other regions that you can use. So I'm going to use UK South. And then you can create like a tag, and I say, okay, my tag is reason. And I'm going to say the reason is customer demos. And then I click review, review, validate. Sometimes when you do that in your subscription, it might not pass because of the compliance policies. So you need to check with your IT team, because maybe you need to add more tags. For example, I have customers that to create like a resource group, you need to create like 10 tags, give maybe the cost owner, many different things, so people can track why you're spending that money and why you're using that resource group. So check with the IT team. So now I have Azure AI demos resource group, which is empty. There's nothing here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a service. And then the service I'm going to do is called Azure Open AI. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to put Open AI here. If I'm going too quick, please stop me. So if you go Open AI, there is a service called Azure Open AI. And then you click create. And it asks you other questions as well. Okay, where you want to create this service? So I'm going to create in my Azure AI demo resource group. What region? I'm going to choose East Europe. So the Azure OpenAI service now is available in US, Central US, and East Europe. I'm going to West Europe. And I'm going to put here as Azure Open AI demos. This is going to be the name of my instance. Doesn't allow me to do this. So let me remove it. Or maybe it's too big. I'm going to remove like this. Yeah. Okay, so the price tier, I'm gonna use the standard, and then I'm gonna click next. I'm gonna leave the network like this for now. The tag, I'm gonna put a reason, I'll put customer demos, and then I'm gonna click next. Then just gonna create here, and then I need to wait. So for every service that you create, you have this deployment time. Some service will deploy quicker, other will take more time. So I will leave this running, but I already done this before, so I could save you guys time. So do you see this here? Like this is the new one I'm trying to get, but I have my OpenAI resource Caio here, which is already created. So okay, this is the Azure OpenAI service. And then, for example, you have keys here, which is like you have the endpoint, which you need this to use with your Python code, for example. And you have the model deployment. So for example, I already deploy in my Azure OpenAI 4 models. I use the GP3 Turbo. I have the DaVinci. So if I create here, I can say, okay, now I wanted to deploy a basic one, the text ADA. And then I'm going to say, I don't have this one, right? So text ADA 001. And it says what this is good at. Okay, this is good at parsing text, simple classification, address correct, keywords. ADA is usually the fastest model and can perform tasks like parsing text, address correction, certain kinds of classification tags that don't require too much nuance. Added performance can often be improved by providing more context. So basically, this is like a kind of small model compared to the DaVinci one, which is more complex, but it's also this one is faster and it's cheaper. So now I have this model here available for me to use. And how do I use them? If I go to overview, to the main one, there is what we call the Azure OpenAI Studio. There is this develop, and there is this deploy. So I'm going to click on the explore, and then it goes to Azure OpenAI. And then I have what we call the Cognite Service Azure OpenAI Studio. Okay, so now it's going to ask you my subscription. Okay, I think I need to move to another one. So instead of no, this one. Okay, so maybe I need to log it with another one. 1 second. I think I'm gonna have to sign now. Okay, so I need to go this way. Okay, so let me. Yeah, I want to show you guys the playground. So I think I'm gonna have to logging again. Okay, this one is complete. Maybe I can try this one already. Explore. Can you choose this one? I'm not checking the chat. Maybe if there's any comment or any question, please feel free to stop me.
I think we're all right from the chat. Did we want to take when were we going to take a break, Caio? Was that?
Yeah, I just want to finish the demo, and then I think we can take a break. Just
all right, okay.
Yeah, I just want to show you guys the OpenAI Studio. Just logging in because I have multiple subscriptions, so this one is trying to. Yeah, I should know. Okay, Contoso. Okay, I think now it's gonna go. Okay, Contoso. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm gonna have to use another one that I have. Sorry, I wanted to create in the new one. Okay, so let me use my Microsoft one. So for the Azure Open AI Studio, you need to have like a approval. So I'm gonna move to my Microsoft one. I think this one could help. Yeah, so let me, if that's okay, let me use this one. Anyway, let's do this. Let's have a break now. I'm gonna check why it's not, because what I wanted to show you guys is the playground, which will make more sense for you guys to understand. So in the playground, you can explore the service. So let's do this. Let's have a break. I'm gonna check here what so I think this is something new. I tried this yesterday night and it was all good. But because I have multiple directors, so I'm gonna stop presenting. Oh, David. Yeah, you know why, David? Because I have multiple subscriptions and directors, and then when you change subscription and and directors, you need to log in again. So yeah, just gonna start this out. But if you only work with one subscription when because I work multiple organizations, that's the challenge, multiple different customers, and I part of their subscription. But so let me sort out this, and then after we come back from break, I wanted to show about Azure ML, which is the machine learning service, and I'm gonna do a demo with Auto ML using the diabetes dataset. So it's 10:52 on my time now. Let's come back at 11. Is that okay? We just do like a 8 minutes break, or you guys want more time?
Hello.
Probably just need. So it was, yeah. So should we just say kind of 10 minutes, and then that gives everyone time for a coffee and.
Hi, who's that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So let's come back at 11. I will.
Yes.
I think someone is on the phone.
Time
Thank
for
you.
Keith to
Yeah.
finish his call as well.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
I think it would be good to put him on mute because it's going to be recorded, his conversation. Kate, I think you.
I think it's Chris that has to do that.
77
Yeah, Chris, can you put him on mute? I'll mute everybody. Yeah, sorry, I had to put everybody on mute. So with
See you at
that
5
conversation.
past then, Caio.
Good. See you guys soon. Hello, everyone. Not sure if you guys are back. You can raise your hand if you're back so we can know. Good. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. So I'm gonna continue now. I think we have. So can you guys see my screen? I'm not sharing, right? I mean, okay. You guys hear my screen? So yeah, we have 1 hour more, like to 12. There's a lot I want to cover. So what I'm gonna do, I will see if I can show you guys the playground in the end, because I want to focus on the Azure Machine Learning Service. But I will paste the link of story about playground, the Azure Open AI playground, so you guys can do this offline. Okay, I'll paste here some code so you guys can, and then feel free to reach out to me if you have any question about OpenAI. So I paste this hands-on demo, so it has a lot of code that you guys can try, and also some other YouTube videos and things. So happy to talk to you guys about OpenAI. But now I wanted to focus on Azure ML. I think Rising, you have a question? No? Oh, I think you have. I don't know if you raise your hands. to say you were here. Or
Roisin, did you have something you wanted to say?
yeah, Roisin.
Might just be left over from coming back.
So yeah, so let me share my screen now. So I'm going to start with presentation. I will leave you guys this deck as well, but I'm not going to have time to go in details of all the slides. So because I want to do the demo. So can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so an Azure Machine Learning Service. Just going to give you a technical overview. This slide is very deep. This is a session we deliver about Azure ML that can take maybe the entire day. So we can go as quick as we can. So it's going to talk about the machine learning requirements, the service itself, the automate machine learning side, and then also about the distribute machine learning, distribute training, and also the many ways you can deploy your Azure models. So if you have questions, please stop me. So I think we already discussed about potential application about machine learning, so I'm not going to go in deep on that. So requirements of advanced machine learning platform. So when you're building your platform and you think about the typical end-to-end process, you have like you prepare your data. So I know Justin spent a lot of time preparing the data set. And I remember when I got involved in your project, you've done the most hard work, that is defining the features, preparing the data, going to the clinical systems and extracting them. And this gave us like a very nice data set in CSV file that we can use. So the preparation is a big thing. It can take months, days, weeks. If you have to integrate with different systems, it can take a lot of time. And also, it takes a lot of time for you to really understand what features you want to bring, what variables. So should I bring age? Should I bring like the race? Should I bring the demographic features, like, I don't know, maybe the postcode where this person lives? So all those difficult decisions you need to do when you're building your machine learning models, we call the preparation of the data. So that takes a lot of time as well. Maybe the data is empty, or there's missing values. There is like the quality of the data is not good, so you need to spend a lot of time with input strategies. Should I replace the empty values for what? The mean, so all those discussions. And then you need like an experimentation environment, which is Azure ML. So in your experimentation environment, you could have things like Jupyter notebooks. You can maybe use Visual Studio Code, where you can build your model in your favorite IDE. And then you train and test. When you train and test, most of the time you need compute. So you need to be able to spend time and resource on training your models. And then, as we spoke, like these large language models like the OpenAI provide, they takes a lot of time to train. Small models can maybe take 1 hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You see the diabetics one is quite quick to train. But after you train and you test, then you think, oh, my model is good. Now I want to register this model, and I want to use, and I want it to deploy. So this is the typical end-to-end process. And it looks simple, but yeah, it's not as simple as it looks like. So you need to dedicate time to do this whole end-to-end life cycle. And in the machine learning world, there is something called ML Ops, which is pretty much DevOps for data science. So you need to think about your solution, your machine learning solution, as a process, and then you need to use things like DevOps, which comes from software engineer, to manage your project, because in the end, when you are training your models, you're putting this to production, you need to have process. So the idea is you can use machine learning ops or ML ops to do the management of your project. Is this a new concept for you guys? I mean, are you guys familiar with ML ops? If you maybe can raise your hand so I can know who is familiar with ML ops. I can see Joseph and Edward. Yeah. So it's another topic that you need to put on your are not familiar, David. Yeah. So think about in software engineer, you have DevOps, which is how you create your code and you push this to production, all this life cycle. And then the machine learning engineers, they use the same principles that you already have in software engineer for a long time and adapt to machine learning projects. So this is a topic called MLOps, which is very important for your project. So I'm not gonna have time to go deep on that, but just keep this in mind about this slide, the DevOps for machine learning. So yeah, so in the data preparation side, as we spoke, you can read using Azure ML data from SQL, NoSQL database, from cloud stores like Blob Store, HDFS. The data could be in multiple formats, could come from text, CSV. You can do cleaning things like you can detect if there are new values. You can detect if you have outliers. You have out of range values, if you have duplicate rows. So those are the things you do in your data preparation. And then you can transform your data as well. And then it's when you go and you do your model building. The model building is, okay, now I need to choose the algorithm. I need to choose my language. So I need to choose what is my development tools. I want to do my local testing. Then when you're gonna do like decisions like what computer environment I'm gonna use, how I'm gonna scale up this. So thinking about the VMs you're gonna use, if you're gonna use like pre-configured environments, your job management, your automate. So a lot of technical things that not everybody is familiar. You can, like when you do your model registration and model management, you're going to use what we call containerization. I don't know who is familiar with Docker, but like Docker is the idea of you putting everything into one container. So imagine that you are sending your things to another country. So we all know you can go and get a container and you put everything in that container and then you ship to another country, for example. The same idea of machine learning. So oh, my model needs to go to production. So I need to put this machine learning model in this container, and then I ship this to another environment that is going to run my model in production. So the same analogy, same idea applied to this. And then you have to version your models. For example, okay, now I have this model, this machine learning model that is version 1. Tomorrow I'm going to create another one. The other day I'm going to create another one. And then you have to keep track of the model. Maybe this model is better than the original one, or maybe the data change, and then you want to do A/B testing. Let's say, let's deploy this model, see how it goes. Let's deploy this model like to 20% of my patients, for example. And then the other ones will use the old model. Oh, this model is better. People use this a lot in e-commerce. So for example, if you have a new model, you deploy this new model to a group of users in your e-commerce platform and then see if it works well. You need to kind of store your model. So you have model repository. You need to track your experimentations as well and know, okay, who is working my machine learning model? When is they're working? What was the change? So then when you deploy, you need to choose what environments you're going to deploy. You need to think about security, as we spoke. For example, the end-to-end security of the machine learning model. You need to monitor, okay, is my model performing well? You need to monitor security. So all those things are important for you to, especially for the infrastructure team, for the IT team, or for the more machine learning engineer team. And then if you were thinking about deep learning, you also have to think about other things as well. So this slide kind of show you traditional machine learning versus deep learning. So for example, here you have like input data, and then you have feature engineer, and then you have your machine learning algorithms, let's say super vector machine, and then you have the output. When you use deep learning, like you have this low-level features, mid-level features, high-level features. So the difference between the two of them. So I'm gonna jump on that part because these are things that would take a long time to talk, and I wanted to showcase the tool itself and give you guys an example. So I will leave these slides for you guys. I'm just going to show a little bit quick what it is in this slide. So they're very interesting things, but I will leave this for you guys. Okay, maybe you can come back to them. They're going to explain about, for example, our offers, about Azure ML service itself, for example, how it works, like the technical details. For example, the Azure ML service has like what we call a workspace, and then her models, experimentation, the computer target, pipelines, the data store. So all those details that it will be important for you guys. So I'll send these materials to you after we finish this session. And I'm going to showcase this, but in a more practical way. I'll show you guys in the tool. So this is pretty much what we have here. Talks about the artifacts, and then also, if you want to try, there's like an example. So this is like a tutorial that you can do, like how you create your workspace, how you create an experimentation, how you create like a remote compute target, and then how you upload your data to the cloud. So this is an exercise you can do after today and in your own time. So let me stop now sharing, and then let's do the demo. Like, let's have a look into the portal. Before I connect to my computer here, is there any question, anything you guys wanted to ask? I don't know. I'm gonna have a look in the chat as well. I think silent is a no. Let me see the chat if we have questions, comments. Okay, Joseph says 70% of my time is spent on preparation. Yeah, garbage in, garbage out. That's true. Not familiar with MLOps. Is there a screen blank just for me? Oh, guys, can you hear me? No, I stopped sharing, but I'm gonna share again. Chris, are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought Chris was saying that there was a screen blank. So I'm gonna share you guys here. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep, it's back.
Excellent. So, okay, so welcome to the Machine Learning Studio. How I got here. So in my portal, using this subscription here. On my portal, I deploy the Azure ML service. And after you deploy your Azure ML service, you have what we call Launch Studio. So you just click here, and then you get to this point. So for the sake of time, I create already some things in the portal, in the studio to demo. But I wanna now do a quick introduction about this. So in the PowerPoint, it mentions most of the things. And then also, let me put a link here for you guys in the chat, because you're not going to be able to learn all of that today. So what I recommend you is to go to this training after we finish this course. And then in your own time, this is a training that goes from the beginning, like introduction, what is Azure ML, how Azure ML works, when to use, and then it goes. So I'm gonna paste this link in the chat, because for those that are interested in pursuing like a career in data science, this is a very important training for you to start with Azure ML. Okay, so things you're going to see in that training, I will cover today. So, okay, so first example I want to do. Okay, so you are a medical doctor, and you don't have, let's say, the coding experience that maybe a software engineer with some years of experience will have, but you are very good with the domain. You understand the data itself. You are the expert in the data, and you understand really, really well the domain. So imagine that you have a data set. Okay, so you have your own environment here. And then in this case, I'm going to use the diabetics one. So I already populated the data set here, which comes from my GitHub. So if I click here, this is the data set. So if you Google diabetics, this is a kind of common data set that people use. You know, you're going to see this in Caio. You're going to see this everywhere. Like even there's this diabetes prediction using machine learning. So everybody talks about this data set. So it comes from, I think it comes from here. I don't know where I got from. Yeah, I think this is the data. Yeah, this is the data set. Okay. So it basically talks about patients' records that were obtained from two sources. And then this is all the things like that we have. Many people publish papers around about this data set. So it's very interesting and it's small. So we're going to use this data set now to do an Auto ML job. So, okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to data. This is where I have many of my versions. And then you're going to create like a data set. So let's say I call say if I go here, copy this, you know, you're gonna say, okay, this is my diabetics. So I'm not gonna upload now because it's already done, but then you use this create data set to upload your data. And then when you do it, you're gonna have your data here available, and then you can consume this data, right? You can explore this data. For example, I have the number of pregnancy. For this person was 6 times pregnant. This one 1, this one 8. Well, this one 10. This one like 0. And then you have the glucose, and I think that's where you guys understand much better than me. And then you have like blood pressure and all those things. And then you have the outcome, which is 1 or 0. So in the machine learning field, like when you have like a 1 and 0 outcome, it's what we call like a binary classification. So it's basically predicting 1 or 0, what we need to do. And we have the age as well, you know. So what we wanted to know is, okay, I know that if a person has this characteristic, it's going to have diabetics. This one, no. This one, yes. You know, no, yes. So I already populate this data. I even generate a profile. And then in this profile, we can see, for example, the distribution. We see that this is integer. We see that the maximum is 17. And then this is the count. There's no missing values, no empty values. We see the main, we have the standard variation. So all those informations come from all my features, right? And then I choose this data set as well because it doesn't have a lot of features, so it's quite easy to learn with this one. So I have the data set. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Auto ML, okay? And it takes a lot of time. So I'm going to run with you guys, but then I'm going to explain the one that I already executed. So you go to the new automated ML job, and then you select the data set. If you don't have, you create one, but I already created for the sake of time. And then I'm going to use this. And then when I click next, right, I will choose my diabetics experimentation. If you want, you can create a new one, but I'm just going to keep the same one. And then you need to choose what is your target column. What what are you trying to predict? So I'm trying to predict the outcome. So I'm going to put my outcome as my target column. So I'm going to select a compute, and a compute is just like a VM, but in my case, I'm going to use a clusters of VM. So I'm going to use a cluster that I create called CPU cluster, which I'm paying $0.18 per hour. So that's how much I pay. And if you see, I'm not paying anything now because this is idle and is zero busy, and it's not being used. So I'm just gonna pay now when I started this. Okay, so then I click next, and then it asks you what is the task. Okay, I want this to classify, but if I have a regression or time series or natural language processing, computer vision, I could use as well. So I'm going to use the classification one, and then I'm going to click next. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what means the validation and the test. Is this something you guys are familiar with? So in machine learning, if you see here, it gives you the key-fold cross-validation, Monte Carlo, the training test, typical training test. If you say, okay, I want key-fold, then you ask you, okay, how much? Let's say if you have time, you can put 10. So it pretty much is going to do a cross-validation 10 times. I recommend you guys to have a look into the books about what is this, because it's a typical thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go very simple thing. I'm going to say, look, this is my data set. Imagine it has 100 rows. I want 30 rows, which means 30% of my data set to be used for test. And 70% will be used for train. So I'm going to do like that, as simple as that. And then I'm going to click finish. So now what it's going to do is going to create the experimentation. So, and it's going to use this compute cluster. You can see it was created today, 11/28, by myself, which I'm using the system administrator user. The type of job is an Auto ML. It's also a classification. The featureization is automatically, which means the Auto ML tool will automatically create combinations of features. And my primary metric is the AUC, and then my experimentation name is this. So now it's going to run. And if you go to the configuration settings, basically there are some things here. For example, it will take 6 hours. So we don't have 6 hours to wait. That's why I already trained. I already done that. But it's interesting to see that it doesn't need to take 6 hours. After the tool try many different things, and then the tool think, oh, there is no improvement, the tool will stop. But we're giving the tool 6 hours, and you can configure it. You can say, I give you 1 week, I give you 2 days, and then the machine learning automatic tool will keep trying to improve. But there is a moment that it's going to decide, look, I try all these things, and there's no improvement, and I'm stopping. So this is like what we call the exit criterion. Okay, so very typical one in the Auto ML tools, because there doesn't make sense to keep trying if you're not getting better results. Okay, so now this is running. If we go to jobs, you see that there is this job, and then in this job there is 2 that are already complete, and there is this one that is running. So if you click here, you see this is running, right? And then we'll take time to do it. So let's go to one that I already created, because I want to also to give time to Justin to talk about his project, which is much more interesting. And then he's going to talk about also responsible AI. So Justin, are you still there? See, oh, I think he left.
Yeah, no. I'm here, Caio. So I'm happy just to squeeze in, maybe 10 minutes at the end, and then
Okay.
just before question and answers. So keep going. This is really, really useful, and I think everyone would much rather hear about this than
Okay.
anything else.
Yeah, that's fine. I can still also stay a little bit more if needed. But okay, so good. So let's have a look into the jobs. So, and as you see, since this is like a Microsoft machine learning platform, you see things like, hey, these are the jobs that I'm running, who is running. Imagine you have a team, then you can monitor all the jobs that you have. For example, this one that completed gave me this accuracy, So also in the compute, I have one compute here running, which and then I have a compute cluster as well. So for example, this admin compute that is running, I created. So if you want to create a new one, you can say, okay, I want a new machine. And then let's imagine that my machine is like 56 gigabyte of RAM, or even if you want like a bigger one, there are huge machines like this one, for example. This one is like super big. You can also choose between CPU and GPUs. So imagine that you need like a machine this size, like it's gonna cost like $5 per hour, but it's super big machine. You can train like huge things. Uh, so yeah, you could maybe, let's say, go to this one like $14 an hour, but look how big this machine is. So in my case, I don't have quota for that. So let's imagine you need these big machines. What you can do, you can request this to Microsoft. So basically, it's like you click here, you say, "Oh, I need this machine for whatever reason." Then it will be allowed because they're quite big, right? So, but most of them small, not that small, but most of the normal machines I have here, they are available. So that's how you create like your own machine. And then after you create this, uh, if you want, you can go and create like notebooks. For example, from here. Let me show you this example here while our Auto ML is running. So this is like my notebook, right? That I could do. But you could also use things that maybe you're more familiar, like Jupyter, for example. Let me showcase this. If I'm going too fast, please stop me. But look, if I go here to this labs, I have an example of training a machine learning model, and I will leave you guys this example as well so you can have a look. So do you see, like, this is my Jupyter interface. I can also use VS Code. I could use Jupyter Lab. And then there's a terminal as well. So for example, if you want, you can, for example, let me show you here. Okay, compute. It's pointing me to this. Okay, so let me go another way. So you can go have access to the, yeah, let's open this way. This is a Linux machine. So this admin CPU, it's a Linux machine. So if you want to go, for example, in this case here, I am in this labs folder. So one thing that I've done is, do you see there is this OpenAI sample code? So what I've done, I went here to GitHub. So I created this repo here, which is OpenAI demos, the one that I share with you guys. And then there is one here, which I recommend, is the Azure OpenAI samples. So if you go to this GitHub here, there's a lot of examples that you can try. You can play with OpenAI. So what you could do, you could go here to this code here, right? And then you click clone. I don't know, are you guys familiar with GitHub? Is it something new to you guys? Have you used it?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly use it for like code repositories. it's free, isn't it? And
yeah, so you can use that to like keep your call. So imagine that you wanted to try. So in my user folder, right? I mean, I have this OpenAI sample here, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna delete this because I'm gonna clone again. So now I don't have here, right? So this is gone. So what I can do, I could do a git clone and then paste my GitHub Azure OpenAI samples. So the same Git experience that you have, I'm having here. So now, instead of uploading the files and creating manually, what I'm doing, I'm just going to this repo, which has some examples, you know, kind of basic samples. For example, let's say embeddings, you know, there's this notebook here, and then I put this here. So now if we refresh, so what I'm showing is the integration with Git. So now it's here. So let's imagine I want to use OpenAI and I want to do some use this example, for example. So now I have this example here, which I can run from my environment. Yeah, this one says, oh, you don't have the OpenAI model. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna do like a pip install, and then you install the OpenAI one. Okay, I'm not gonna install, but the same experience you have as a data scientist using notebooks. And then you can use it. So going back to the Auto ML part, because for this part of notebooks, I just wanted to show you there is this sample folder here. And then this sample folder has many tutorials that you can try. And then I recommend you to try this one, the image classification. So the only thing you need to do is to go click here and then click clone. And then when you clone, you can clone this, for example, for, I have already here. So let's clone, for example, into the admin folder. So it's going to clone the example. And this example is something that you could use to learn better the tool. So it has this training and deploy example. For example, the training one pretty much show you how could you train an image classification using Azure ML. So how you import the package, how you connect to the workspace, how you create an experimentation, how you attach to a cluster, how you like download the data and then, you know, train the model, create the script, configure the job, run the job, monitor the job, and then when your model is good, you can register that model. And then as soon as you register a model, it will go here to your model folders. So I've done that example beforehand, so we could save time. And let's say, and then when I execute that code, it gives me this model here. So now I have this model here that it was trained, and it's available here. So going back to that example, the second part is the deploy. So now that you have a model and it's registered, you need to make this available. And then this is how you do it. Now you deploy, you create a script. So all this you could do using code, like you can test your model here and everything. And then when you deploy this model, you will see that it's going to become available as an endpoint. So I execute the example, and now I have a model here that is in a healthy state. And this is something that I could test. This is something I could consume. So imagine that I want to consume this model in R. This is how I will consume if I want to consume in Python, in C#, you know, so there is like an endpoint. And then basically what you do, you consume this model, calling this endpoint, passing new data, and then it gives the prediction because the model is deployed. So imagine I have a website. My website could consume this model, and then this is what we call a real-time model. So in the Auto ML part, look, that is still running. Let's go to this one that is completed. So this one will take time. It's running. If you see around models, look, this is all the models that it's trying. So it's trying so many different things. This is how long it took. Let's say if you guys are familiar, for example, random forest, extreme grand boost, like GBM, many. So it will stay there. But then if we go to the one that I already trained, and then we go here, it gives you very nice things. For example, this is the best model is called voting assembly. This is the accuracy, this model also, if you want, you can deploy as an endpoint, and then you can download the model if you want. You can register this model. If you want, you can also get some explanations about this model. And I think this is the most interesting part for you. For example, what are the things that impact the people? I don't know, maybe now you guys help me if this is right. You guys are the experts. So it seems that someone with glucose or with like BMI or age, those are the things that will impact someone having diabetics. If you want, you can expand this. So for example, what are the other features, right? So for example, so what I'm doing, I'm getting my best model, the best model, and then I'm looking at the data and say, what are the feature importance? What are the things that contribute to 1 and 0? Let's say, okay. So for example, for the class 0, right? That's but if I change for 1, you know, then this is all the data. So I will stop now. I'll leave time to you, Justin. I mean, I just wanted to show like what you could do. You could quickly use Auto ML, execute it. It's gonna save things for you, like for example, look at that. This gave me a warning, say it didn't improve for the last 20 interactions, so we basically stop. So this one didn't take like 6 hours. And then if I go, for example, to the metrics, this is all the metrics that I got. Also, I think I want to show you guys one more thing. Yeah, this data grade rails is nice because look, for that data set, it performs some tasks. And one was if that was a imbalance data set. So imagine like fraud. You have little amount of frauds, so it's called like an imbalanced data set. So you need to do some tests to see, for example, you use the data to say, okay, we don't have this problem because we have enough people with diabetics and not diabetics in this data set. Also, the missing feature values like pass, the high cardinality feature detection pass. So if you try this with your own data set, you might see that maybe some of the things will not pass. So then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to like learn more about what is like imbalanced data sets, for example, and improve your data. And then let's say those are the models. So maybe I'm talking something that is very new to you guys. So I will pause now. I will give the time to Justin because I could be talking about these topics for days. I hope this was useful. I'm sure it was very technical, but I'm gonna give time to Justin to maybe explain these things in real life, in what you guys do, because good.
Thanks. Thanks, Caio. Chris, can you make it so I can share my screen, please? So just while we're doing that, is there any questions at all at the moment? All right, so specify a certain, yeah. So there's a question in the chat and a hand up. So we'll go with a hand up if we want to speak just while we get this sorted. So Thomas, do you want to?
Okay, thank you for that demonstration. The MS Azure platform looks incredibly powerful, and I wish I'd known about it perhaps a little bit before I had to do some of my own coding. I had a couple of questions. First of all, can you use any external clusters with that automated machine learning process? For example, can you download the code and then run it on another cluster that we might have access to elsewhere?
Caio.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I've never done that, but I think it's possible because look, let me quick. Is it okay if I quick share my screen again, Justin? Is that okay? So I think like, look, if I quickly share my screen, I personally never done it, but if you go to the Auto ML, when you finish, oh, that one finished, the one that we execute. So if you click here, and you go, for example, in the best model, which is this one, for example, there is one thing that is called view generate code. So for example, if I click here, it just generates me a code, really like let me close this one. So we don't. A second. So I think you could use that code as well. So let me go back to Auto ML. Voting, yeah, this one. That's my view generate code. Yeah, so let's have a look here. Yeah, so do you see this? Like, look, this notebook was generated from the Azure Auto ML run, and it points you to the run. So kind of like give you some code that you could try. And then another thing you could do, if you go to compute, there is what we call Kubernetes clusters as well. You can attach Kubernetes clusters to your Azure ML, sorry, to your machine learning platform. And there is what we call attached compute as well. So for if you want to attach and run on Databricks and Data Lake Analytics, HD Insights, Synapse, Spark Pools, or another virtual machine, so you can bring your own compute. So I don't know if this was your question, but this is kind of the things that I know they exist. So you can bring your own Kubernetes as well. Was it what you were asking for, or are you asking something different?
Yeah, I think that being able to download that bit of code that you showed was really useful. Another just very quick question: can Azure do data balancing in that platform? Is that possible?
You mean, let's say if you have an imbalanced data set and then you want?
Yeah, I work with a lot of imbalanced data sets and have used various algorithms to balance them. Is that capability of Azure as well?
Yeah, you can reuse. So in the Auto ML, there's some featureization that will do automatically to you, but you can use the same ones you're using. What are you using now? Do you have any specific library that you use?
I tend to use synthetic oversampling using like SMOT and AdaSign algorithms.
Yeah, so you can install them, like you can install them in the Azure VMs and then use the same thing. So pretty much almost everything you're doing now in Python, you can run in Azure. It's just like installing the package.
Brilliant, thank you.
And then there was just a quick question in the chat from Morgan Edwards about whether or not you can limit the Auto ML to particular different model types as well. I think you can do that, can't you?
You can
specify.
You mean in the Auto ML, you can block some algorithms if you don't want. I don't know if this is the question, but like you can say, I want this, I don't want that, and then you block them.
So I guess that's all right. So I suppose really we've only got 10 minutes left, so I really just want to rattle through. There's been some great questions, and I think it's to some respect it's better that it's a discussion as opposed to just a presentation. So all I wanted to do with this now is just really show some potential use cases. So we've talked a bit about kind of different classifications, and some people have got experience in machine learning and AI, some haven't. So if I'm telling you how to suck eggs, please excuse me. It's just so we cover everyone. But broadly speaking, when we apply machine learning, we apply it in one of two ways, particularly in healthcare, either in diagnostic medicine, so diagnostic modeling, where we look at identifying a disease itself, and that's based on some invasive tests or standardized reference, so gold standard criteria. And the objective really for diagnostic medicine, diagnostic modeling, is to diagnose disease, to pick up on conditions, and to identify and assist in recognizing signs that may lead to or will progress into deterioration or disease later on. And then the other side of it's the prognostic modeling. So this is where we're then taking some characteristics and we're trying to identify future events and the trajectory of the patient. So this might be kind of how they perform, as we've had a couple of examples around post-operatively, so whether or not they make it through surgery, but it can also help and aid discussions with patients around their trajectory in terms of their healthcare. So I mean, Caio's done a far better way of explaining the complexity of AI, but it's not simply data collection. You put it into a machine and you generate a prediction. There's a lot of work that needs to go into that verification of the data. So that domain knowledge which we bring both in understanding the conditions and the healthcare requirements, but also our patients. The data that we use is really, it's vital. There was a great comment about garbage in, garbage out. And if you just start throwing anything at machine learning, it will get through it and it'll come up with some results and they'll, on the face of it, look really impressive. But when you actually start to interrogate them and delve deeper, you'll start to realize that it's talking nonsense. And we've all seen the ChatGPT stuff, which spits out random references and kind of spurious answers, and that's the same as when you're doing any of the tabular data or the image data as well. Feature extraction we've talked about, and again that's around the domain knowledge, but also it's about making sure that you're approaching your machine learning in the right way, so you're using the right tools to do that, and afterwards it's validating it as well. So it's making sure that the model itself really is answering the questions you want using the right data. So there's a really good, I did some external validation with a statistical group, and they said to me, quite frankly, with one model that we had it was about 10,000 records, and each one had over 500 data points. And he was like, right, well, statistically speaking, when you whittle that down, that's about 20 data points per record. That's 20 records with all those data points. So it's not a very statistically sound sample set. So it's better to have a lower number of really important data points and features than it is to have such broad information. But there's far more to it than that as well. And this was really some of the schematics of everything that's required for healthcare AI modeling. So well beyond just the data in, data out. Again, it was really good getting some information from everyone on the group about the potentials and the use cases that they're looking at. So I'm just going to skip over this really, because I think there's opportunities there that we can see day to day. But we need to be able to approach modeling and the use of AI in a very data-driven, pragmatic manner. So we need to make sure that we've got the data right. We know that we're evaluating our modeling techniques, and we're aware of bias and kind of unvirtuous models. So ones that are unfair or penalize and provide disparities in terms of predictions based on characteristics in the data, maybe around deprivation, maybe around ethnicity. But that's a really important thing to look at. So yeah, this is a bit around prognostic modelling, and how that one of the projects I've looked at is looking at it from outcomes from arthroscopic hip surgery, and we started to look at whether or not we could identify patient-reported outcome measures at a year using one of the databases, and it was great. So actually, what we found is that we could, to some degree. It's not perfect, but we had a high propensity for being able to identify patients that continued that post-operative trajectory to get to a point where they had what's called a minimally clinically important difference at 1 year. And that's an example of kind of using tabular data. So this was registry data, and it was about 6,000 records in the end, but really kind of whistled down to some very key factors around what caused outcomes. So I think I just want to quickly go over bias, and bias is really those flaws, those shortcomings, where we create models that are really effective at identifying outcomes or are what we want to see in small groups of patients, but they neglect or they hinder other groups, and it's a big part of modeling that you'll come to realize. So there are skin diagnostic tools that don't work if you've got tan skin or dark colored skin. There are tools that decide on health outcomes, but if we haven't got ethnicity in there, then we're missing out on the differences in ethnic variations and prevalence of disease. So there are a few tools that can be used. Microsoft and Azure has got the RAI dashboard. There are other tools as well. So just in the interest of fairness, it's worth to say that there's a couple on Google, and TensorFlow use some analytics, but they all do broad, similar things. Microsoft's RAI dashboard is really great. It follows these principles, and it's all in one place. So if you've run your train model, you can kick off the dashboard directly from AML, and it provides all that visualization where you can look at things like age grouping, and how the model performs on different cohorts, do some counterfactual analysis, and look at any biases there. This is one from Google, which is What If. Again, it's a kind of open source available. You upload your data and you can do some analysis and counterfactual analysis on the Google. But I think one of the best things to look at in terms of mitigating bias is being proactive. And this is the ProBAS tool. And if you haven't looked at it, I encourage you to look at it. I'm going to just skip through in the interest of time, but it really asks you these kind of 4 pillars of questions around whether or not your data, your predictions, your model is subjective to bias at any point. And it's a questionnaire that you fill in yourself, and actually kind of evaluate the data, but it's very well structured, and it provides, it's proven to have a better impact in terms of modeling when it's done. Finally, I really want to kind of talk over some metrics. So I'm not going to go over all the metrics, they're all there, but bottom line is true positive, true negative are really important for machine learning modeling. So when you're looking at your models, look at the true positive, true negatives, and also the ability to distinguish between the two variables that you're looking at, the outcomes. And that's represented by the ROC area under the curve, so the receiver operator area under the curve. There is a thing around calibration over accuracy, however. So even if you've got a model that seems to be incredibly well accurate, if it's poorly calibrated, you can get you have these kind of areas where it's only accurate at a very narrow point in the model and it's not universally accurate. And these two diagrams just show that similar accuracy, representing similar accuracy, but on one of them the accuracy is kind of really skewed at the higher ends with that sigmoid curve versus the straight line kind of actual probability of a well calibrated model. So I'm going to stop there because we're at time. And what I'll say is that actually there's loads more, and I'll be really interested, happy to talk to anyone who wants to. So I'll put my email in the chat, and I'm sure we can organise kind of calls with Caio eventually as well. But I'm going to hand back over to Chris now because he'll want to start wrapping up.
No, thanks, Justin, and thanks, Caio. That's amazing. So we're just over time, so it'll be super quick. You don't have to end learning about AI and ML right now. So I've posted some links into chat. Anybody with an NHS email address can access further courses. Somebody mentioned at the beginning of the couple of hours that they've done the AI 900 course. It's just a couple of hours where you can join a course that we run on ESI, esi.microsoft.com. You can learn the basics more about AI, and there's an exam you can take afterwards. You get a 50% discount. Then we've got 2 advanced courses that are really relevant. The AI 102, which is the AI engineer, talking about those lures, talking about natural language processing and cognitive services, all that stuff. So AI 102, if you want to learn more and spend 3 days on a 9 till 5 course with an Azure specialist, feel free. But that DP100 course, please go to esi.microsoft.com. We publish those courses all the time. That's our data science course. It's all free. They're normally a couple of thousand to join these courses, but if you've got an NHS email address, you can join it for free. But yeah, Justin, thank you for putting your contact details. Caio, thank you for putting your contact details. Guys, abuse them. You've got my permission. Just send questions. But other than that, have a fantastic day, and thank you for spending the time with us today. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for staying.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you all. Cheers. Cheerio.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.